Hi guys, I'm here with another video, and I'm going to be using Waffle Flower Bouquet Builder number 3 on Bristol, and here it is here. Waffle Flower reached out to me a little while ago and offered me a gift card to try one of their products, and I chose this one. All products will be linked below except for I wind up using a Recollections die for the word God, and I used a Cuttlebug, an old die that says Mother's Day. Those two I can't link to, but I will link to a Spellbinders alpha die, which is comparable to the Recollections die, alpha die set, which is from Michaels. Now here I'm stamping the image with antique linen distress ink, just, enough, because it's such a detailed stamp, a large stamp, so I'm just stamping it enough where I can see what I'm doing. And then here, I'm picking out my color choices. I'm keeping it in fast forward, guys, because to spare you the long video, I'm trying to keep it as short as possible. Now here I picked 2 greens, and 2 a dark, like a red and a pink. I didn't wind up using the lighter green and the darker red. I didn't use those. The numbers I'm going to tell you are, I'll have them linked below in the description below, but I'll tell you the colors. I started off with the blue, and that blue color is 528. It's TomBow marker 528. And I use a laminated sheet, as you can see on the left, because look how it keeps the water. It keeps it in like a bubble. It's really cool. I don't know why it does that. If I use the glass mat, the water just flattens out like a puddle. So I love working on a laminated sheet for my watercolor because I don't have to use cups. And this just works for me. I just put a droplet down, use that, and then use it to clean my brush, and on to the next color, new droplet. Very simple. Now, I'm by no means am I a watercolorist, nor am I experienced. I'm a beginner. But what I have found with no-line watercoloring, if you don't want it to look like a blob, where there would be the black line, leave a white line in its place, like for a separation, you know what I mean, like a highlight. And I don't know if this is proper. I have to look into more no-line coloring, but this seems to work for me. I mean, again, I knew this image would be covered up by my sentiment, so I didn't go too crazy with trying to be a perfectionist with it. I just wanted to lay down some color. I picked some colors that I thought would look good together, and I just, put it down, and in between each petal, again, I kept a white line, a space, I should say, which gives the illusion of separation there, or highlight. So that's what I do. I mean, is it the right way? Maybe people put darker lines in there. I don't know, but this seems to work okay, and it looks pretty good. So, and I never watercolor 2 things next to each other, because 2 petals or 2 areas, because they'll bleed together and it'll be a blobby mess. Now moving on to the next color, it is 817. And it's TomBow number 817, and I'm just doing the same thing over again. I'm skipping around to different petals, and off to the right, you can see a little bit in the top right. I keep the stamp there in case I need to refer to it if I'm not sure where, if a petal goes a certain way or whatever, because sometimes it is a little hard to see with the antique linen distress ink. So, I mean, I've heard some people say when you do no-line watercoloring that the distress ink disappears into your image. I have never had that happen for me. It stays there, it doesn't disappear. You can still see it. I thought when I was going to start doing this that the ink would just blend into the color of whatever I'm using, but that's not the case at all. I guess what they meant was that the ink you put down covers over it. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But I've never had it like break down into my color where you can't see the lines at all. You can still see them if you look close enough. If the colors are light enough, you can see through it. Now here what I'm doing, the color I'm using on this one is 026. This is one of my favorite yellows. It's like a mustard yellow, very earthy, and I really like that color. These little areas that I'm coloring in are so small, so I just put in very little color and just pulled it out with the water brush. You know, and the brush I'm using is a Tim Holtz, Fawn, I think it's called a fine detailing brush. I pretty much use this all the time. I have one as a backup in case something happens to this because I do use it all the time. Another good water brush is by Arteza. I have those too, and I do use those if I'm going to be using a lot of different colors, and it's not very often though, but I do use them once in a while. But anyway, okay, moving on. So I'm just adding a little bit more of these yellow. And again, it's such a small area. And this image is so detailed that, you know, I just add the color and just blend it out. It's really nothing crazy. I'm going to zoom in a few and you'll see closer. The green color is another one of my favorites. This one is 177. It is a great, again, earthy green color. And it looks great. It matches good with the yellow and the pink and the blue. They all kind of go together, you know. So I'm doing the leaves here. And I'm just putting down color in where I think it would be the darkest and blending it out. It's just a repeating of the same old thing. And now with the branches or stems there was really, it's such a small area. All I did was trace over the lines, and then I just took my water brush and went over it so it looked more organic and it didn't look like I drew them in, you know, look like they were painted in. So yeah, that's what I did here, because there were so many fine little stems and whatnot. And then with these guys, these little tiny little guys I'm working on now, I just put the color down and just pulled it out. You know, it was, again, the smaller the area, the easier it is. I find that no line watercoloring on bigger images to be much more difficult. On smaller areas, it's so much easier. And it's so forgiving because it's very loose and it doesn't have to be perfect. And, you know, that's it. And I knew, and again, like I said, I knew my sentiment would be covering a good portion of this image. Okay, now this last part here, again, I'm just using the same green, tracing over the areas. I'm not tracing the leaves to the end. I'm just drawing where the leaf meets the stem, and then just pulling it out with a little bit of water, just to make it look more watercolorish. Is that a word? Watercolorish? I don't know. But watercolored. It makes it look more watercolored. All right, and then the bottom here, I'm just doing the same thing, repeating same old, same old. Now, I made this card before. I made this video. Excuse me. I made a version of this card before I made this video. And I will show you that. I made a Mother's Day card. And then I thought to myself, well, my daughter has a godmother. And I thought it would be nice to make this version of the card, but add the word God. Instead of Happy Mother's Day, it's going to say Happy Godmother's Day. And she can send that to her, you know, for Mother's Day, which I think would be nice. I don't really see godmother's cards out there. So I thought this would be a little different. Now for the big leaf here, I'm just adding some dark, you know, heavier pigment in the middle and just blending it out. Just, again, guys, it's just repeating the same thing over and over again. Okay, now I'm finished up with that. I'm cleaning my spot. Now I went and die cut this off camera because my big shot's on the other end of the room. And I just want to show you this die for a minute. I mean, you can buy this stamp set and fussy cut it. But the die comes with that huge die and all the other dies that, you know, for this stamp set. And it cuts out, look at all those openings. It cuts out all those little nooks and crannies. I mean, it really is, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, this will be a nightmare to fussy cut, I think. Now, what I wanted to do, I wanted to have a white card base with a black mat with a white panel. And I wanted black splatter. So I'm using Distress ink. It's acrylic ink. And wait, let me see. Oh, it's called Distress Paint. I'm sorry. Distress Paint. And it's in black soot. And it's an acrylic paint. And it's a paint dauber. So I just put a little bit on a block. Add a little droplet of water. Mix that in with the number 4 Grumbacher watercolor brush. I put it inside my box that I got from my post office. A medium-sized priority box. And I just put it in there. I had another box that was smaller, more shallow, and I noticed every time I did black splatter, it got everywhere. So I knew I needed a deeper box, and this one worked perfectly. So, and they're free. They have them at the post office. So, okay, after the black splatter, I went and heat set it because I know I will smear it. I mean, I'm trying to see, because this is a busy stamp, if I should keep it white or keep the black splatter. I flipped it over and I decided I do like the black splatter. Now, I'm zooming in here. What I'm going to do is I'm taking my number 5, not 8, number 5 Jelly Roll pen, and I'm just doing some hand stitching. I'm using my T-ruler just along the very edge. You know, I'm going in maybe 1/8 of an inch and just casually, you know, making my little faux stitching. And I went from one side to the other to give one side time to dry, because it does take a little, you know, short little time to dry. I didn't want to smear it. And yeah, I just repeated the process. If you don't have a T-ruler, I highly recommend it. It's a cheap item and one that I use all the time. I love it. Okay, so after I finished, I realized I did make a couple boo-boos. And I took my black Jelly Roll pen and I just fixed whatever mistakes I made. Like if, you know, it was sloppy. All right, I lined it up. And I had to trim it down a little bit more so the stitching was showing. And I did that off camera. And I measured this card at 6 3/4 inches by 4.5 inches wide. It's a big card. Again, it's a big stamp. It's a large stamp. So I'm matting it down. And after it was matted, I was using, see, I took out my Spellbinders alpha dies. I cut them, the word God. See, as you can see, I got Mother's Day there. And I have God there. And I realized the God in Spellbinders was a little bit too big. So I went and got my Recollections. There it is there. And I cut the word God out of white. I always do white first and to see if I like the sizing. And then I use my good cardstock because I don't want to waste it. And then I'm looking, should I use a white shadow underneath or black? And then I decided definitely the black. It makes it stand out more. And you can see it because, again, it is a busy stamp, you know. So anyway, so now a lot of times I used to try to put a black shadow under my letters, and I would put glue on, and then I'd put it on, and it would slide around, and I would always get it crooked. So now what I do is I hold one side, lift it up, put the glue down while one side is pinched. I hold it in the right position where I want it to be. I put my glue on, pinch it down, then I flip up the other side, and I glue that. This way I always know it's exactly where I want it to be, and this works for me. I do get glue on my fingers, but that's okay. Then I moved on and I used, now this Happy is a Stampin' Cut set from Hero Arts. I love this stamp. It's a great price point. I got this when I first started card making, and it's just one of those happies that I use a lot. And they has a couple sentiments to follow it. It's just a great little set to have. Now, I'm using a Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive, another adhesive wet glue that I love. Just putting it down all over my back. I'm going to slide the card up in a minute here. I know it's a little off camera. Bear with me. And I'm trying to figure out the alignment of my sentiment. And there we go. And trying to figure out, I'm putting the letters God down so it'll say Happy Godmother's Day. And I figured out how I wanted it. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And then just adding some glue. I always start with the middle letter, so I make sure I get my spacing correct. Now, these letters are pretty forgiving, these dies, the way they are. You know, they're not all the same the way they're written, so it's easy to line them up and they don't look crooked. Now, this Mother's Day die is from Anna Griffin. It was Cuttlebug. Like a year ago, I bought from Cricut, it was a mystery box. And it was a Cuttlebug mystery box. It was $30, and I got at least $100 worth of dies in it. It was fantastic. And I had some embossing folders, too, they gave me. I mean, the dies are incredible. But anyway, that's where that's from. So I can't link it to that because it was a mystery box. Now, this is black Nuvo drops. I use these all the time. I also have another bottle with a fine tip applicator, which is great for critters' eyes or things like that. Or if you want to get tiny drops. I always do odd numbers, either 3, 5, 7, so on. Now, these drops are a little thick. And they were pointy, so I hit them against my hand to round them out. Some Nuvo drops, the consistency is different than others. I don't know why. Now, here's the other Mother's Day cards I was telling you about. I made one with black outline and one no line coloring, and I added a little piece of twine around the bottom. One's for my mother-in-law, one's for my mom, and again, this one is for my daughter's godmother, my sister-in-law. And that's basically it. Oh, I added at the end, I added glossy accents like I did on the other cards. I added glossy accents, and I also added shimmer pen to the flowers, which I didn't record because it takes too long. But yes, that's it, guys. Thank you so much.